Die in the Dungeon is an early access dice deck builder that uses a surprising amount of diverse number of playstyle choices based on the different faces available throughout your many attempts. It certainly adds a lot more options than most do when it comes to sitting down and figuring out exactly what kind of a build you would like to go for, instead of just playing the meta builds over and over again. The game heavily incentivizes players to try new playstyles centered around each character and whatever they manage to acquire. I did find it was a tad bit overwhelming to get to the second stage. This is where the enemies start to hit harder, so unless you have a specific defensive layer alongside your damage, you can expect to see some blatantly unfair instances where you never had a chance, like on your first turn rolling nothing but zeros and having no defenses. On one side, you could save scum, which I believe should be a feature that the developers should look into eliminating, as it's one of the easiest ways to abuse the game since it's not predetermined outcomes. It is completely random what dice you will pull out during each fight. I can't say that I dig the soundtrack all that much since it was more of a repeating faulty transition than a continuously smooth loop. The gameplay elements' profound simplicity and designs kept me playing. Nothing was overly complicated to understand. You have all the information you need to strategize the best action for the current event, battle, or finishing moves. Take the chef boss for example. They summon a bunch of additional creatures each turn, which have different passive effects when killed, so you want to keep an eye out for them and add on an extra layer of defense to stop the reflect damage upon killing them, or even applying buffs to the boss. Some of the builds are satisfying to encounter and abuse, like the dice that allow you to copy another dice effects while also costing no energy, those being the tetrahedrons, which allow for insane combo effects. Each dice does something different, so you'll be working around them all. Red dice are for damaging, blue for shields, green for heals, purple for buffs, gray for mimicking, and of course orange for lingering buffs that transfer to your next turn. Depending on the character that you choose and the number displayed on the roll, they will behave slightly differently, making some of them obsolete if they cannot be played in the boundaries of each character's backpack, all of which have differing sizes and shapes. Using a dice face of 1 as an example, you can see that it will branch out to the neighboring tiles to empower them. Adding more tile empowers allows for more combinations for your defense, heals, and damage. It is a very fun system to work around. Your goal here is to get to the very end of this mysterious dungeon, crafting and redistributing all of your dice faces, while also combining them with special powers and effects. These upgrades range from lowering their cost and applying status effects to locking them in place until they hit a value of 0, and many other unique features. While it does seem simple, it can become quite challenging if you've forgotten to build up a well-layered deck. Cinder is the default character that offers the ability to add more dice modifier choices, like re-rolling your faces more often and of course, drawing 1 extra dice every odd turn. This power is great for builds that require a lot of cycling through your deck to acquire your main carrying aspects, like the modifier for growth, which keeps scaling a dice each time it is played, or just to guarantee that you can acquire specific combinations with the relics that you've picked up. Livither is the assassin that adds bonus status effects, like poisoning their targets with each successful strike and also scaling with each passing turn. They are a bit harder to play since you're not going to be able to take down targets immediately, unless you're able to craft some beneficial effects for your starter dice. Adding on to the understanding that this character is more on the offensive side rather than a balance of both defense and offense makes it rather rough. Mango is the tank offering the ability to move locked in dice, which is very good if you're planning for a duration build that relies more on locking your dice and empowering them each turn. You'll have fun planning your way through each subsequent failure and success. When you eventually win, you can add in more modifiers that will scale up the game tremendously, making it even more challenging than it was before. While it definitely can be a bit frustrating at times due to the off chance of having a great run while encountering a turn 1-0 face, you can really tell that the developers have put in a lot of elements and effort to help make it a feature to play around rather than to dread. With Cinder, a relic, or a combination of effects that will allow multiple dice rolls and re-roll dice to help you play into it, allowing you to re-roll those dice an extra time and also to power up forged effects that would offer the same choice. So what would typically be an RNG feature that will be used to ruin runs is now a feature that can empower your runs, like going for a high-risk, high-reward, multi-zero redistributed dice for a maxed output of 8 damage and defenses, added with the power effects of relics, could really turn the tides in your favor, which honestly was a very refreshing thing to see. It was interesting enough to sit down and finish an entire run, which took about 3 to 4 hours. I didn't notice more than 4-sided, 6-sided, 8-sided, and 3-sided dice, so I do hope they make strides to incorporate more into the game for a much greater diversity. I think it would be really cool to see the elements of a 10-sided, 12-sided, and 20-sided dice, with elements of rolling a natural 1 or a natural 20 with bonus positive and negative effects, since it is a game that could be taken down a much deeper path of concepts. Regardless of their choices, playing it was fun, and I'm glad that it's making strides to improve itself as an interesting deck builder that is simple but also challenging.